just sort of get the creative juices going, because that's really what we're here for tonight. So, I would like to spend a few minutes with your indulgence on just what the city does do, and again, Bill's already helped me out by starting on some of the key and essential things that you'll see here, and then we'll talk about some of the other possibilities. Obviously, public safety is, I listened to that first. Not an accident.
It's the most important thing we have.
Like I said, probably not an accident. But in any case, these are the sorts of things that Doug and his officers are taking care of on a day-to-day basis, and trying to make sure that we stay safe. Now, some of the particulars of that you see in your spreadsheet, and as we go through this, hopefully you can recognize in your survey sheet the groupings of things that reflect the main functions that we'll talk about. So, the idea now is to try and connect those so that we get a sense of what's more important and what's less. Insurance, that's mostly just a big dollar item, but it's certainly essential to what we're doing. We have to be protected from legal liability, property loss, vehicles, official acts, and so forth and so on. And this, frankly, is to the tune of about $60K a year for the level of insurance we need, at least as the insurers have convinced us up to this point. It's something we continue to look at, but it's certainly an essential thing that we have to do to be viable as a municipality. Defense against encroachment. Now this is fancy talk for being ready to go to court if we have to protect ourselves. And you've seen us do that in a couple of instances where suits were brought that would have encroached on the basic interests of the city. And so that's certainly an essential thing that we have to be able to do. The alternative being just folding our tent and yielding to that kind of trouble. So you'll see a few lines in your survey on that account too. There's a lot of city administration that is necessary in order to move our agenda forward. Certainly we have to keep a current set of what our ordinances and policies and procedures are. That's always a work in progress. Some of that's ongoing right now, and of course those are areas where sometimes we can get some financial assistance, as we did with the codification through a state grant. And any opportunity we get in any of these cases to get outside support, we'll certainly press for it. The financial reports I mentioned a little while ago, that's a routine thing we have to do, and it's an ongoing challenge to find somebody qualified to produce those for us without having to spend too much money on it. And of course the actual just routine monitoring and execution of the budget and the efforts we're making to try and make sure that spending is kept under control and that we're not going beyond the essential services and functions that we need. Public utilities, that's fancy talk for just paying the bills and keeping lights on. We've got a lot of street lights in Auburn Park, and we've got gas and light and heat and cooling to supply to municipal facilities, and so I mean that's just sort of a fixed cost that we have to sustain on a month-to-month basis. This might be a good point to mention that there's an awful lot of our budget that is what the feds like to call non-discretionary, which means we really have no choice, short of a major shift in city operations. This is just cost of doing business. There's a lot of sort of quiet study that goes on at City Hall that doesn't get much visibility, but it's certainly important for us to keep track of what's going on legislatively and legally in other jurisdictions that affect us. The state is probably the biggest single one, but of course Metro now is becoming more assertive as a consolidated government, and occasionally federal things come into play too. So it's important to keep track of those things and make sure that we're aware of anything that may impact our capacity to continue to do what we need to do. We get some help doing that just by participating in organizations like the Jefferson County League of Cities and the Kentucky League of Cities. And we have occasional meetings and push out a lot of information and get a lot of feedback to try and help that along. But it's a major undertaking. Not real expensive because it involves mostly action by elected officials who are ready to double their salary at a moment's notice. That's a joke. This is Jason's page. Maintenance and enhancement of public facilities. Of course, this is the kind of stuff that mostly he does, either himself or administers contracts to help with where it's necessary. Most of that on road repair, like we did last year. The remainder of that mostly is his own work, again, it's pretty much one of those non-discretionary things in my view, because these are essential services that we need to have the city we can be proud of. I had a page for the forest because, as far as I'm concerned, that's way up there on the priority list too, because it's such a central part of our corporate identity. I mean, this is not going to be Audubon Park without the forest. And being as old and as threatened as it is with various ailments and environmental problems and so forth, it's really an amazing achievement by the Forest Board to keep things going the way they have. And my aim this year, and the reason that I asked Jeanette to pass around copies of the Arbor Day Proclamation again, is because that's a core issue, and it's one that I hope to really put a lot of emphasis on this year to get everybody involved.